Okay, I'm going to speak today about the people of Yahweh, who Yahweh's people are, what his plan is for them in the end time, and how he's going to rescue them from the position that they've fallen into, how they've fallen into that position. I'm going to read mainly from Zechariah 10. It starts off, verse 1. It says, "Ask Yahweh for rain in the season of late rain. It is Yahweh who causes storms, and he will provide rainstorms for them, grass in the fields for everyone." So this season of late rain that it talks about, they knew it as the latter rain, and it was part of the year before the grape harvest when Yahweh would send rain to make sure that the harvest was abundant. So this was something that was known in Israel. So when we read it, we can miss the cultural context a bit. But Yeshua says that the field is an idiom of the world. So when it says grass in the fields, the word there for grass is also translated as herbs, and it was the original food that they were given in the garden. So when it says that man is to tend the garden, what he's tending is this grass. It's the same word in Hebrew. Now it says to ask Yahweh for the rain. Ask Yahweh for what it is that's going to nourish the grass. It's going to lead to an abundant harvest. And this period of latter rain is a period that we're actually in at the moment. And it's before the harvest at the end of the world. And the rain is what Yahweh sends. It's his word. It's the water, the living waters that he sends, so that the harvest at the end of time will be abundant. And Yeshua says in Matthew 13:38-39, "The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels." So Yahweh uses this picture that everyone can relate to, picture of the harvest, the picture of the people working the field, the rains coming, nourishing what it is that grows and what it is that's harvested. It says that the people are to ask Yahweh for it, for the rain. They're to actually seek Yahweh, and when people seek Yahweh, Yahweh nourishes them. It says that it's Yahweh who causes the storms, it's Yahweh that sends the rains, and this is the time that we're in now, when there is this period of latter rain. People are coming to greater knowledge and greater understanding of who Yahweh is. People are going back to Torah, and this is just before the harvest at the end of the world. Now, the word that's for grass is like shoots that spring up. And people think that the word apostle didn't appear in the Old Testament, that it's just a New Testament word, but it's because of the Greek that it's translated from. It comes across like that, the way that the people have translated the Bible. But it's all throughout the Old Testament, and it means to send forth. And it's the word shalach. It's got the same root as the word shulchan, which means table, and it carries the imagery of a table of food. So like a spread of food on the table. That's what these people are sent forth to bring this abundant harvest. Zechariah 10:2 says, "For the teraphim," which are like oracles, they're the idols that these people had, "spoke delusion. The diviners predicted falsely, and dreamers speak lies and comfort with illusions. This is why my people have strayed like a flock. They suffer for lack of a shepherd." So when the house of Israel and the house of Judah turned to these other idols and turned to other gods, Yahweh knew what was going to happen, and he tells them not to do that. Not because he's selfish with them or for any bad motive, because he wants to protect them, because he knows if they do go to these other sources of spiritual deception, that they will be deceived. Yahweh obviously knows ahead of time that they're going to do this, and he warns them and says, don't go to these other gods, don't go to these idols, or you will be deceived. Now Zechariah 10:3 says, my anger is roused against the shepherds. Well, hold on a minute, it's just said they suffer for lack of a shepherd. So what's going on here? They haven't got a shepherd, and yet Yahweh's anger is roused against the shepherds. But to Yahweh, if the people have got a bad shepherd, a false teacher, then it's not a shepherd in Yahweh's eyes. So on one hand, they haven't got a shepherd. They haven't got a shepherd according to Yahweh. But his anger is roused against these people who've led them astray. He goes on and says, and I will punish the he-goats, for Yahweh of hosts has taken thought in behalf of his flock, the house of Judah, so the Jews. He will make them like majestic chargers in battle. So when Yeshua came the first time, his major problem was with these shepherds, was with the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees that were leading people astray. Even the first miracle that he performed, the turning the water into wine, that was to do with the water in those pots. If they tasted it and it tasted slightly of wine, then it was declared unclean by the Pharisees, and what they'd have to do is they'd have to get the pot and submerge it in living water, and as soon as the living waters kissed the top of it, it was declared clean again. So Yeshua took this to the extreme and turned water from water into wine. And if the Pharisees at the feast had known what it was that they were drinking, they would have gone ballistic. They would have thought it was terrible. Now he called them blind guides and blind shepherds. And it says here that Yahweh of hosts has taken thought in behalf of his flock, the house of Judah. And it says he will make them like majestic chargers in battle. Bear in mind that the period that this is talking about is now. It's during the latter rains. So he's going to empower Judah as they're under attack at the moment. Everyone hates Israel. There's this ISIS group that's just on the border of Israel now, in Syria, and they're going to be a big problem to Israel, basically. And it says in Psalm 83, there's a prophecy in Psalm 83, that all of the countries around Israel will attack Israel. But it says that Israel will be victorious. So when it says that Yahweh makes them mighty, empowers them, it's saying that he'll protect them, just as he did in the 6-day war. You hear miraculous reports of things that happened during the 6-day war, where Israel had one tank, but what the enemy saw was a battalion of tanks. There's lots of miraculous things that happen to give Israel the victory, and that's what Yahweh promises to do again. He promises that he will strengthen them in the last days. Now Isaiah 56:10-13 says, his watchmen are blind, they are all ignorant, they are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping lying down, loving to slumber. So this is talking about these shepherds, these blind guides. And it says his watchmen are blind. Now, why are they blind? In the Bible, when it uses the word blind, it's talking about them not being able to see because they haven't got any light. And we know that obviously Yahweh's word is light, but his watchmen, his shepherds, haven't got that light anymore. They've gone after their own doctrine. They're walking in the darkness of the doctrine of men. And it says that they're dumb. But why are they dumb? It's certainly not that they're not speaking any words. That's not what it means. It's because they're not speaking Yahweh's truth. They've got none of Yahweh's words to speak. They're dumb to that. And it says here, they cannot bark. They can't raise the alarm for Yahweh's people because they have no idea, basically. They just continue in their jobs as pastors, and they just think that things are always going to go on in the same vein. They're just doing a job, basically. They don't appreciate who Yahweh is, that he does give warnings within his word, and they don't raise the alarm to the people. Now, verse 12 says, come ye, say they, I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink. Sorry, I've skipped a verse here. Verse 11 says, yea, they are greedy dogs,
which can never have enough, and they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, everyone for his gain from his quarter. So they don't look to Yahweh, they look to their own ways to do things. When people say we need to celebrate Easter or we need to celebrate Christmas to bring people in through the doors, all that they're doing there is they're not relying on Yahweh to do it, to bring the people that he wants along. They want a bigger number as possible, and they're doing it through the way that they've reasoned. They're more concerned with the number of people that will put into the offering plate than they are speaking Yahweh's truth. That's what they're concerned about. They're not concerned that the people that they're bringing in using those methods are not the people that Yahweh wants to bring in. They're people that they brought in with their own reason. They have nothing to do with Yahweh at all. So they've got a church full of people that aren't Yahweh's people, and they create this situation for themselves. But because they don't have this faith in Yahweh to do it, because they don't see a supernatural outpouring of Yahweh, because they're nothing to do with Yahweh, they think this is the way that they've got to continue. Verse 12 says, "Come, ye," say they, "I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink. And tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant." Unaware of their imminent destruction, they just think that things are going to continue like this forever. The religious has become a part of the world of man. It's nothing to do with being set apart to Yahweh. It's just become another job. People go to seminary and they get trained as a pastor, and then they go out into the world, and it's got nothing to do with Yahweh at all. It's just part of the world of men. It's another part. They think that it's spiritual. Jeremiah 23, 1-2 says, "Woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith Yahweh. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh, God of Israel, against the pastors that feed my people, ye have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings, saith Yahweh." So that's interesting. Yahweh said all those thousands of years ago that there would be pastors that led this people astray, and he says that he will repay them according to their iniquity, according to the evil of their deeds. Now, if you spoke to a lot of these pastors, they would think that what they were doing is good, but it's not them that decides good. Yahweh is the only one that can say something is good. If it doesn't come from Yahweh, it's like when man ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and he started to decide for himself what is good and what is bad, and that's what's being perpetuated there. It's not making Yahweh the Lord of their lives and saying, I'm going to look to you for guidance and for instruction. That's not what they're doing. They're deciding for themselves. And Yahweh says that things like Christmas and Easter and Sunday worship, pagan worship, that it's wrong and it's evil. In Yahweh's eyes, it is evil. So if a pastor stands up and teaches Yahweh's people to do these things, then in Yahweh's eyes, he's teaching them evil. And Yahweh says that he will repay all of those pastors for all of the evil that they've done in his sight, which is pretty terrifying. Verse 3 and 4 says, "And I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries whither I have driven them, and will bring them again to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. And I will set up shepherds over them, which shall feed them, and they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, neither shall they be lacking, saith Yahweh." So he takes them away from those shepherds that are leading them astray, and he gathers them again from all the countries that they've been scattered into. Now, this is during the millennium, when Yeshua is reigning and the kingdom of Israel is restored. This is what Yeshua will do when he's in charge. And this process is beginning now. Yahweh is gathering back the people, waking them up to who he is, so that they seek him. They seek this reign in the latter times. Verse 5 and 6 says, Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. You know who that is, obviously, don't we? It's Yeshua. Verse 6 says, in his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely, and this is his name, whereby he shall be called, the Lord our righteousness. So it's in his days when Yeshua is ruling. This is during the millennium, and he will reign, it says, with a rod of iron. It says here that he will execute judgment and justice in the earth. So we will know what it is at this point to live under a just ruler, to live under a just authority as opposed to the authorities that we have now. Verses 7 and 8 say, therefore, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that they will no more say, Yahweh liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But Yahweh liveth, which have brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. So this is when the house of Israel get drawn back, and Yahweh will no longer be known as the God that brought the children of Israel out during the Exodus from Egypt. There'll be a greater work that he's done when all of the nations of the earth glorify him as he who brought all of the seed of the house of Israel from all the countries where he'd scattered them. All the nations will know that he's done this. Jeremiah 50 verses 4 to 7 say, in those days and in that time, saith Yahweh, the children of Israel shall come, they and their children of Judah together, going and weeping they shall go, and seek Yahweh their God. So this is when the two houses will seek Yahweh. They won't seek their own traditions. The house of Judah won't seek the rabbinical traditions that they've been caught in for so long, and the house of Israel won't seek after the evangelical Christian traditions. They'll seek what it says in the scriptures. They'll seek who Yahweh actually is. Verse 5 says, they shall ask the way to Zion. It says the law goes forth from Zion. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come and let us join ourselves to Yahweh in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. So this is the covenant that Jeremiah is talking about in chapter 31, when he says he will establish an everlasting covenant with the house of Judah and with the house of Israel. This will be when that covenant is fully realized and it's made with those people. Verse 6 says, my people hath been lost sheep, their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. So Yahweh's people have forgotten who they are. They've forgotten their identity. And they've forgotten that they are Israel. The scriptures are clear about where the responsibility for this lies largely. It lies at the foot of the shepherds. It says their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They're the cause of them going astray. I wouldn't want to be stood before Yahweh as a shepherd that's led Yahweh's people astray. It says in Deuteronomy 13 that if they add to or subtract from the Torah, they're false prophets. And if the false prophets are leading the people astray, then they should be executed. That is how serious it is to Yahweh. Got people on the earth that are trying to snatch his children away from him and teach them things that cause them to not know Yahweh, cause a distance in the relationship with Yahweh. And verse 7 says, all that found them have devoured them, and their adversaries said, we offend not because they have sinned against Yahweh, the habitation of justice, even Yahweh, the hope of their fathers. So this is key. The enemy, when they're confronted about this, they say, we haven't done anything wrong, because in the state that they were in, they were sinning against Yahweh. So we're allowed to do that, basically. Now, the enemy, it says, have found the lost sheep that are wandering, and they've devoured them. And it's because they weren't under the protection of the one true shepherd, under the protection of Yahweh, If they'd been with Yahweh, the enemy could not have devoured them. But because these false shepherds have led them astray, led them away from Yahweh, they're in a position where they can be devoured. They're in a position where they are sinning against Yahweh, whether it's ignorantly or not. It's like in Charlie's Torah portion, where Balaam advised that they let the Midianite women into the camp so that the people were sinning, so that they weren't under Yahweh's protection. That's exactly what these shepherds have done. They've made the people sin against Yahweh, so they're not under Yahweh's protection, so they can be devoured. Back to Zechariah 10, in verse 4 it says, "From them," and the them is the house of Judah, "from them shall come cornerstones, from them the nail, from them bows of combat, and every captain shall also arise from them." So this is a messianic prophecy in the Targum, which was the Aramaic translation that was read in the synagogues. It had commentary in as well. It says, "Out of him, his Messiah," instead of "from them the nail." So out of Judah comes the Messiah. They knew back in the 1st century that this was a messianic prophecy, and actually the words that we've got translated are "from them the nail." So it speaks directly of Yeshua. Now it says, "From them bows of combat, and every captain shall also arise from them." Now this is the weapons and the fighters to fight against the enemy. They will rise out of Judah. Now that doesn't mean that they come from the tribe of Judah. To a Hebraic mindset, if Yeshua has come from Judah, and then from Yeshua has come all of these weapons to fight against the enemy, and from all the fighters, then those weapons and fighters have actually come from Judah as well. It says in Matthew 16 verse 18, it says, "And I shall say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." So in the verse in Zechariah, we've got the talk of the weapons and the fighters that will be used against the enemy. And in this verse here, it says, "The gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Our gates are defensive. The enemy is under attack from us. This is what the scripture says. Yahweh might use the enemy to attack us, to build our faith, but the general situation is that we are on the attack, and the enemy is scared and flees from us. If we resist the devil, he will flee. So this is the mindset that we need to get into, that we are the attacking force, we are the army that Satan is scared of. No matter what we see with our eyes or whatever's going on around us, it might seem that the enemy is winning. We might look around at the world and think, well, the enemy seems to be fairly in control here. But that's just our eyes and our ears. If we have faith in Yahweh, Yahweh's told us that we are the army and that we are the victors in the end. Verse 5 says, "And together they shall be like warriors in battle. Tramping in the dirt of the streets they shall fight, for Yahweh shall be with them, and they shall put horsemen to shame." So we are warriors in Messiah, and the battleground is illustrated here. It says, tramping in the dirt of the streets. We fight in the mire and in the grime of the world. That is the battleground in which we fight Satan's territory. We go into his territory, and we are warriors for the Messiah. We're there, and the enemy is scared of us because Yahweh is with us, and the enemy cannot stand against Yahweh. Now it says, "And they shall put horsemen to shame." And in the last days, Revelation tells us that the enemy sends horsemen against us. They sound like animal hybrids, which might sound far-fetched, but we can see things like ligers now, the lions and the tigers that are mixed together, hybridized genetically. And even if you go into a supermarket and you buy genetically modified salmon, it's got the genes of pigs in it. So animal hybrids are not something of the future. They're here with us today. Revelation 9 verses 16 and 17 say, "And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, that's 200 million. and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. It sounds like a pretty terrifying sight. 200 million of them. And yet this verse in Zechariah tells us that we put them to shame. And it's in the same context, the same time period, this period of the latter rain, right at the end. That's when these horsemen in Revelation appear. These are the horsemen that we shall put to shame, the armies of the enemy. We put them to shame no matter how impressive they may look. Zechariah 10:6 says, I will give victory to the house of Judah and triumph to the house of Joseph, Ephraim, house of Israel. I will restore them, for I have pardoned them, and they shall be as though I had never disowned them. For I, Yahweh, am their God, and I will answer their prayers. So it says here that in this time period, he will give victory to the house of Judah. Now, I mentioned Psalm 83 before. All of Israel's enemies attack Israel. All of the countries around. But Israel wins. They're victorious in it. And it's because Yahweh is on their side. But what happens is, like in the Torah portion last week, where they went up against Sihon and Og of Bashan. Now, they attacked the Israelites. The Israelites didn't do anything to provoke the attack. They just asked, can we go through the territory? And it's exactly the same situation in Psalm 83. The Israelites don't attack. They get attacked from outside. But what happens as a result of that is exactly the same as in the Torah portion. Their borders are expanded. They win ground because they were attacked. The enemy attacked them, provoked them, and then Israel end up benefiting from it. But Luke 13:35 says, Behold, your house is left unto you desolate, and verily I say unto you, ye shall not see me until the time come when ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of Yahweh. So Yeshua tells the house of Judah then, when it says, Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. He's talking to the house of Judah, and he says, you won't see me until you cry out for me, until you say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. And at the end of time, the house of Judah will see that Yeshua is their Messiah. Now Ephraim was divorced, when it says, and triumphed to the house of Joseph, that is Ephraim. I will restore them, for I have pardoned them, and they shall be as though I had never disowned them. And this is talked of in Hosea chapter 1 verse 10. It says, Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, when they were disowned, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. Yahweh forgives them and brings them back to him. Zechariah 10:7 says, Ephraim shall be like a warrior, and they shall rejoice as with wine. Their children shall see it and rejoice. They shall rejoice in Yahweh. So just as Judah was made mighty, Ephraim will be strengthened as well in Yeshua, the means by which they were brought back to God. And it says, it speaks of their enthusiasm, and it says that they will rejoice as with wine. It's like they completely lose their inhibitions. Like the rejoicing that they do in Yahweh, because it says it's in Yahweh, they rejoice as with wine. And the rejoicing that they do is so enthusiastic. Verse 8 says, I will whistle to them and gather them, for I have redeemed them. They shall increase and continue increasing. So we're in that stage right now where Yahweh is whistling to us like the shepherd to gather the sheep. It says, for I have redeemed them. Obviously Yeshua paid the redemption price for us. His blood, he's brought us back. He's redeemed us from our sin. And the reason is illustrated here. It says, they shall increase
and continue increasing. So he didn't just have the grace to bring us back from our sin, to forgive us of our sin. He actually does it so that he can bless us. That's how much Yahweh loves us. Verse 9 says, "For though I sowed them among the nations, in the distant places they shall remember me. They shall escape with their children and shall return." So this is happening now. People are beginning to remember Yahweh as he whistles to them. They wake up and they start to come back to him. Now, to explain the Hebrew concept behind the word remember, I've put in Genesis 8 verse 1, it says, "And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made the wind to pass over the earth and the waters assuaged." Now, from an English understanding of that verse, it's almost as if Yahweh went, "Oh, Noah is in the ark, isn't he, with all the animals? Better do something about that." Well, that's not what the Hebrew means. Hebrew means to bring the situation or the person to the forefront of your mind, to make them your animating concern. Now, when we remember Yahweh, we make him our consideration above all other things. We make him the Lord of our life. And when we've started to observe his commands and live life according to how Yahweh says, bringing that to mind first as the reason why we do things, then we've begun to remember him. So when it says here, "In the distant places they shall remember me," this is what's happening now. In all the places where the house of Israel are living, they've begun to remember Yahweh and to put him first again. Verse 10 says, "I will bring them back from the land of Egypt and gather them from Assyria, and I will bring them to the lands of Gilead and Lebanon, and even they shall not suffice for them." So Egypt, symbol of bondage and sin. This is where he brings them back from. He brings them back from this land of sin and bondage. "And gather them from Assyria." Assyria is symbolic of this dispersion. They were dispersed to Syria. So he says, "I'll bring them back from the dispersion, and I will bring them to the lands of Gilead and Lebanon." Now, Gilead and Lebanon, Gilead is actually in Jordan, and Lebanon is certainly not a part of Israel. So this is after this war in Psalm 83, when the borders have been expanded and Israel goes back to the land that was given originally, because the borders were much bigger than the land that Israel currently occupies. The land that God gave to his people was much, much bigger. And he says that he will gather them back to those lands. So the lands of Jordan, the border will be expanded around that, and Lebanon as well. And it's just like the situation with Sihon and Og. They attack and Israel gains from it. Israel actually gains the cities and land of their own. Verse 11 says, "A hemmed in force shall pass over the sea, and shall stir up waves in the sea, and all the deeps of the Nile shall dry up. Down shall come the pride of Assyria, and the scepter of Egypt shall pass away." So Charlie mentioned the scepter, talking about Yeshua before, but a scepter in as a biblical idiom means a ruling authority. It says that the scepter shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes, and what that was a reference to was Judah losing its autonomy to rule itself. They had to look to the Romans. They lost the right for capital punishment. They lost the right to look after their own legal system. So that happened just after the Messiah was born. So the scepter didn't depart from Judah until the Messiah came. But scepter is talking about this ruling authority. It says, "The scepter of Egypt shall pass away." Egypt being sin, having ruling authority over the lives of people. When the Messiah comes, that scepter passes away from Egypt. It's no longer got that ruling authority. It's no longer got the legal authority in the people's lives. And it says, "Down shall come the pride of Assyria." So we're freed from pride as well.
When we're in Messiah, we're free from sin, we're free from pride. Now, Yvonne spoke the other day about the rivers drying up. It said that we're approaching a time when the prophets talked about the rivers drying up. And one of these prophecies is in this. It says, and all the deeps of the Nile shall dry up. And it says in Revelation as well that the Euphrates will dry up. That could well be physical rivers that dry up. But what I think this is talking about is this famine that's prophesied in the end times. It says that there will be a famine of his word. So these rivers that dry up, it's in the context of it saying the latter rains, this water that Yahweh will bring to his people, saying in the end days, these rivers will dry up. The water that Yahweh feeds his people with will dry up. So we have to take advantage of the time now when there is this abundance, when we are in the period of the latter rain. We need to soak up as much of the water that Yahweh is sending as possible, because in the very end times there won't be any of this. There won't be this abundance, people coming back to Torah, remembering who Yahweh is. The rivers will dry up. It says that there will be a famine for his word. So Bibles will be outlawed. Things that we take for granted now, the way that we learn, the internet, all of that will be gone in the end days. Now it says, and shall stir up waves in the sea, a hemmed-in force shall pass over the sea, and shall stir up waves in the sea. Now it just says the sea here, and when it just talks about the sea, the idiom in the Bible is for the people. It says elsewhere, the seas. If it's talking about the physical seas on the earth, it talks about the seas. But here it just talks about the sea. And that is an idiom for the people. Now, when it says they will set forth waves within the sea, that's what we're seeing now. As we step out and we are being different and we're remembering Yahweh, then we are causing waves amongst the people, among the people who religion has just become a part of the world of man, and they've become set in their ways. They've become comfortable with the way things are. We are causing waves, and it's to be expected. It's prophesied. Verse 12 says, but I will make them mighty through Yahweh, and they shall march proudly in his name, declares Yahweh. So they're made mighty through him. We're made mighty through him, through his name, which is his character and his authority, by acting in the way that Yahweh would have us act, the way that Yahweh himself is. That is what makes us mighty, and that's what makes us strong and will give us the victory over the enemy. No matter how things look from our eyes and from our ears, when we look out at the world, Yahweh's promised to give us the victory. He's promised to make us mighty through him. If we just act according to the way that Yahweh would have us act, according to his ways, according to his character, then we're made mighty, we're made strong through him. Amen. Amen.